Hello all, Jamie Rodgers here from Jamie Rodgers Crafts, and today I thought I would do a little demo for you with the Floral Lace Collection. This is actually the card that we're going to be creating, and it's one of my favourites. I absolutely love this hot air balloon, and it's a really fun way to do our clouds in the background. So it should be quite a fun one, and it will give you a few ideas on what you could be creating with our incredible Floral Lace Collection. If you fall in love with the collection from today's video and would like to track it down, then have a little look on our stockist guide on our website. The website address is www.jamierodgerscrafts.com, and you'll find the stockist list on there. Honestly, we are adding new stockists all of the time, so do keep an eye on it. But a lot of them are going for this Floral Lace Collection, so you're certainly going to find it easy to track this one down. Not only do we have stamps, we have stencils, we have inks, we have a whole host of goodies that come out at the same time as the Floral Lace Collection, so there's an awful lot to share with you in today's video. Also, don't forget to click subscribe and tap the bell so you're notified of all of our future videos, because as you can see here on our Jamie Rodgers Crafts YouTube channel, we are bringing you constant flows of inspiration through demos and reveal videos and top tip videos, and we would love for you to be part of our little YouTube family. So if you haven't subscribed already, then please make sure that you do so. So let's jump in and have a little look at how we're going to create this card. So the first thing we're going to do for today's project is do our background. So I've brought in our Fluffy Clouds stencil. Now I love our stencils. These are what we class as 8x8 stencils. Obviously you've got a little edge around them depending on the design. So they tend to be about 7 to 7 3/4 inches for your actual design in the middle. One of the bits to note with our Jamie Rodgers Craft stencils as well is that they're actually cut from a slightly thicker mylar than what most people cut stencils from. And I mention this because when we come to emboss them for our machines with our rubber mats, you get a really cool impression. It also means if you add texture paste over the top of your stencils, it's going to have a bit more depth to it as well. So they're going to look more like embellishments on your cardstock, and it looks really, really good. Now there are 3 designs that come out of the Floral Lace Collection. There is our Fluffy Clouds, which we're using today. There is our Floating Hearts, and of course our Floral Delight. And the Floral Delight is a lovely one because of the flower that runs through it. This one is actually one of the flowers you will find in the stamp set for the Floral Collection in the Floral Lace set, and it also matches the MDF flowers and the stencil as well. So it all sort of teams together. So if you wish to use this in the background and then bring those designs forward with the MDF and the stamps and the stencils, you absolutely can do. So for our stencil, what we're going to do is we're going to work on top of a piece of Night Sky Navy Elite cardstock. And we're going to anchor this down with just a small bit of tape. I'm going to be honest with you, I rarely tape my stencils down if I'm working on my own, but I really should encourage you to do the things I don't, which is anchor them down and make sure they're nice and in place. So we'll hold that down top and bottom just so we know that clouds aren't going to blow away, and we're going to bring in some white ink. Now I'm going to use today our archival Brilliance ink in Moonlight White. There are lots of different white inks on the market, and it doesn't even have to be an ink pad. It could be a polish or a wax or one of those different types of mediums that you could be working with. But to hand today, I've got this one, so I thought I'd bring this in and work with it. So I'm going to use a blending brush for the first layer because I want a fine covering for each of my clouds. So I'm going to load up that bit, and we're going to go in and we're going to anchor this down and place our colour right the way through and colour that background. Now I love working in white ink. I especially love working in white ink on top of blue cardstock. I love those sort of China collections that you can get, them Delft styles where you can build, you get that white and that blue together. And I like to bring that into my crafting. So especially when we're talking night skies and we're talking clouds, this white and blue is going to work really lovely. There is a more subtle shade in our Elite cardstock, which is the seashell blue, and there is also a nice bright blue, which is sail away blue. So if you don't want a night sky look, you could tone it down slightly with one of the other options instead. Now, when I did my first set of clouds, I wanted to make them look a little bit more fluffy. I wanted there to be a bit more texture in them. And what we've created already is really lovely. I'll give you a little flash of that as you can see it here. But actually, we could add a bit more to them. So again, sticking with the ink, but this time instead of using a blending brush with really fine bristles, I'm going to go for a stipple brush. Again, loads of these different styles on the market, but this is just the ones I had to hand. So I'm picking up my ink in exactly the same way as I would with a blending brush, but this time I'm going to stipple over the top of the cloud. And that ink will dry and we're going to get those brush marks, those stipple brush marks in place. And we're going to have that really cool fluffy look to our clouds instead. It's also more intense because we're not blending the ink, we're letting it sit where it is. So we're going to end up with a more intense shade. We're also building up on top of the colour that we've already placed down there. So again, it's going to be slightly more intense than what it was for our first blended effect. This is just how I like to build my clouds. Now again, you could be using white gessos, you could do them with embossing powder if you prefer. There's loads of ways and different mediums you could use through your stencil to create those clouds. But I really like this one. When we take away our stencil, we can see that we have created some lovely little fluffy clouds there already, and we can leave them as they are if we wish to. But I quite like bringing in just this white gel pen and adding little marks running around the clouds. You don't have to do this if you don't wish to, but it just adds a bit more depth to them. I'll give you a little close-up of these just so you can see that texture we achieved from the stipple brush marks, but it's just a really fun way to create this. Now, a couple of different options for you. Now, we don't need to know about these for today's project, but it's nice to know of different options. We have a lovely stencil, which I'm going to go out on a limb here and say is called Snow Flurry, something along them lines. You could easily put that over the top and bring down snow falling from your clouds. You could also pop your cloud stencil back in place and put some clear texture paste over the top of these clouds. That would look really good too, because we've got that white underneath, we've got that texture in place, and then we'd have that gloss go over the top of the clear texture paste. We could of course do the same with something like our diamond white texture paste and have them quite sparkly and glittery as well. So many ways that we could take this and bring it further. We could also of course emboss this before we coloured it by running the stencil through our machine. Now when it's all dry and calmed down a bit, this is the effect I've created with my stitch lines in place and my lovely sort of tonal effect going on with the clouds. Now I'm going to be using this on the card, but let's bring in a couple of bits actually. Let's bring in our card to share with you, because I haven't yet told you the size of mine. I always like to make sure I tell you the sizes, just in case you want to recreate exactly the same as this. This is one of those cards you really could make to whatever size you wish. So don't be too governed by me. I like quite big cards, but you could certainly pare it back if you'd like to. This one is 6 1/4 inches by, let's go this way, about 9 1/4, 9.5 inches to give you an idea. But again, really truly, we could take this right the way down to an A6 card if we wanted it to be. It really doesn't have to be this size. It's just that I like big cards. So moving on to our next layer, we're going to bring in a piece of our polar white card, and I'm going to pop this inside a, I forgot the name now, it's gone, tub, for want of a better word. And I've put it into a tub without really thinking this through, because my tub seems to have a little nodule in the bottom there, which is a bit of a pain in the bum, but we're going to go with it. It's not a problem. We're going to move it to one end. Obviously, when you're misting, you normally want the item in the tray to be flat so that it doesn't come up and move, and we don't end up with runs in the piece of card or the piece we're working with. Being honest with you, I normally do this on a baking tray because I love working with baking trays, but I didn't want to cover my desk, so I've gone for a tub instead. I am now regretting that, but we'll go with it because we're here and we're halfway through. So moving on, we are going to play with some of our elite misters. Now, if you've not seen these, there are 6 different colours. There is Gladiator Red, Night Sky Navy, Heritage Green, Sunbeam Yellow, Seashell Blue, and Rose Petal Pink. Now these are really great because they match our elite cardstock. So where we were just playing around with the Night Sky Navy in the cardstock, we of course have the Night Sky Navy in the matching mister. It really gets to me when I ink something and miss something, or create a panel and then I don't have the matching colours of card. So my way around that was to bring you matching products to the matching colours of card, and I find this really helps when I'm working with them. So with this one, I'm using the Sunbeam Yellow. This is a beautiful, vibrant, intense pink, yellow even, that's just so yummy. I love yellows. Yellow and blue are my favourite shades, and I really love this one. It's such a beautiful one. Now, these are dye-based inks. Excuse me, sorry. Dye-based inks, and that means that we can do a lot with them. Also means that there's no mica in these. So unlike some inks that sometimes block in the tube, we don't have to worry about that. There's nothing in here that's going to block. It is a dye-based ink. It's also water-based, so it means that we can dilute it down and do more with them if we wish to. And we can also add them to different items. You may have seen the technique I like to do where I mix them with texture paste to make my very own coloured texture paste, which I really enjoy doing too. But for this day and this demo, we're just trying to aim for a coloured background. Now, of course, this will take a little while to dry because we've just been misting it. And if you're worried about it curving, a little tip I picked up from the lovely Jane Gillett Woodwear is mist on the reverse before you mist the front, just with some water, and it will keep your project nice and flat. Now, as you can see, these absorb beautifully into our polar white cardstock. So there's no runs or any bits that I was worried about. It's got that really lovely mottled effect, sort of tortoiseshell style, which was what we was aiming for. I've got one that's already dry, and I'll bring this one in. Slightly less intense mist in here. We can still see some of the original colour of the card shining through. One bit I'd like to mention about the Elite Misters just before we move on, and this is something else that's quite important to me, is your ability to use the product once you've used all of it. And by that I mean I don't want you to having to recycle these too quickly, so it's nice to actually be able to use them again. So the labels peel off really easily, and you can then fill these full of water and use them as a mister. It also means you haven't had to pay out for a mister, and it gives you lots of misters to match in with your work and to create, and of course to dilute these down and make your own colours within these bottles and make your own additions, which can be really fun too. So coming back into our card, let's bring in some of our glue. So we're going to use the Jamie Rodgers Crafts clear drying glue. And we're going to add this panel on flat. Now this is a great glue because it dries clear, it's a white PVA, so if we do get any come out the edges, it's not the end of the world. We can clean it off with water as well if we do get it on our skin or onto any of the other items that we're working on. I'm going to leave that on there just to anchor that one down and keep that background panel in place. And we're going to bring in our next stage up. So we're going to bring back the Night Sky Navy and the Polar White. This time I've added some of my 3mm foam tape to the reverse of it just to give it a bit of a step up. And we're going to place that down in the middle, leaving about a 1/2 inch gap or a border, mat and layer around the edge there, just so we've got that nice tone shining through. We're then going to bring in our stamping piece. So we're going to bring in our platform, and we're going to use our lovely hot air balloon. Now, these stamps are so beautiful. This, of course, is the Floral Lace Collection. So we've got our lovely flowers, we've got our sentiments, we've got our butterfly, we've got our balloon set, which is what we're going to be using. We've got that beautiful lace design that is a pattern match stamp, so you can match it up as long as you want it to be. And we've got our frame as well. And you can see just quite easily how everything coordinates all the way through. And this collection has been so much fun to design and work with. It genuinely has been a dream come true to make this one. I've really enjoyed it because it just works so effortlessly and creates such beautiful effects without actually really having to do a lot other than just stamp the actual image. So I'm going to bring in a piece of our Polar White again, and we're going to place that down onto our stamp press, and we're going to hold that down with some of our magnets. And then we're going to bring in one of our inks. So we're going to use the Black Panther, which is our quick drying pigment inks. These are great fun because we can do a lot of techniques with these. These are water resistant, so again we can colour them with our misters like we're going to be doing shortly. They're pigmented, so we can heat emboss them if we wish to. They're also alcohol marker friendly, and that means that when we colour them with alcohol markers, they're not going to bleed, which is just what we need them not to do. And they're also archival quality, so we can use them in our scrapbooks, and they're fade resistant, so when we do use them in our scrapbooks, we know that they're going to last a long time. So they're that quality ink that we need to be future proof as well for our projects. So I'm just going to tap this over the top of my stamp, get a nice coverage, and I usually stamp an ink twice. So I've left the ink just off to one side, resting on the lid, but actually I quite like that, but we are going to go in again. I never quite get it right first time when I'm stamping. I'm not the best stamper in the world. I know that not everybody is, and I'm one of them that isn't. I also say this about being a colourist. I'm not the best colourist, but it doesn't mean I don't enjoy doing it. So we persevere and we use the right tools. And a stamp press is brilliant because it gives you that double option, doesn't it? Gives you that chance to repeat and redo in case everything hasn't gone quite right. Now, another part of what we're not really looking at in today's video, but something I do like to mention, is our matching stencils, which coordinate perfectly with our stamps. And we have our stencils so that they match over the top of our stamped images, which is just brilliant because it means, like in this instance, we could quite easily use this and we could bring back our misters and we could mist over the top of that, knowing that the background is protected and we're not going to get any of this colour on any of the background areas. That's a win-win for how to colour quickly. With our stencil, you also receive the negative as such. Now that's great because it means that we can place this over the top and then we can mist over there if we wish to, and then remove knowing that again, we've protected that stamped image, but we've left the background able to be coloured, which works really nicely. We also have the same for the banner. You've got the positive and the negative for your banner element too. And then the next part, again, something we're not working on today, but is worth knowing. When we have our matching MDF, which we have available already, we have our hanging ones which come with a mobile kit, and we have the ones without the holes that could also be used to just make home decor, decorations, bits like that. These fit perfectly within the stencil aperture and then match perfectly to your stamp. So you can line your stamp up, bring that over and stamp that down, knowing that even if this moves, even if it lifts up with your stamp, you know exactly where to put that back into place so you can come back in and stamp again. Because of, like I confessed earlier, I'm not always brilliant at getting the best image first time, so it gives me the chance to repeat and multiple stamp without having to worry that I'm not holding down that image or the MDF. It's just a bit of a hack really to make that nice and easy to do. And this is the joy of having the matching MDF stamps and stencils that all work together perfectly. Now, going back to where we were with our lovely balloon, let's bring that back in and we're going to bring in some of our misters again. So I mentioned these are water-based, I mentioned we can dilute them, I mentioned that we can do quite a lot of techniques with them. One of my favourites is painting with them. So we're going to put some of that out onto a mat. Here's where I get a bit more messy than I normally am. And we're going to bring this in and start painting over the top of our image. Now I love how quick we can colour with these. I love the way that we can dilute them down if we wish to. And I also like the fact that once we've taken them out onto the mat here, we can mix new colours, we can mix other items in with them. So maybe you want to mix in a bit of our texture base, something like our gemstones texture base, and turn this into a glittery paint instead. Maybe you want to add in some mica, add in all those different products that we've all got in our stash to create different colours, paints and styles with them. That's absolutely great to do. Another bit that I really like with these, I'm going to try and do this slightly up there, just in the air. I'm going to bring this down. We're going to bring in some of our night sky navy. And I've done this, I'm such a messy worker, but I've done this to show you that when you cut this out, this part behind the strings is going to be layered on top of the night sky navy card in this project. And I don't always like the fact that this part's left open white. We of course had to have it this way for the stamp, but it's nice to be able to disguise it. So you can bring in that night sky navy from the mister, paint over that area, knowing we're going to trim this out. And then when we layer it on top of our clouded background, you're not going to have that white area hanging in the middle of the balloons. That's going to match in perfectly with our night sky navy elite mister to the cardstock behind it. So it just means everything matches and works nicely for us. So let's pop them bits out of the way, and I'm starting to get to the stage now that I'm messy. So let's bring in a piece of card to work on and cover up my desk. Such a messy spritzer. I am, honestly. It's fine, I know it, you know it. Confessions of the day, messy spritzer. So again, bringing in some of our glue, we're going to add this down onto the back of the night sky navy panel. And we're going to add that onto the front of the card, nice and simply, leaving just that white edge shining around the edge of our clouded panel. We're then going to bring in one of our balloons which I've already coloured. So I've already taken my elite misters, I've misted them out, I've painted in all the different areas of them. This one's slightly more subtle than the one that I have finished on the finished card, but it's nice for you to see different styles. I've then taken a white gel pen, the same one that we did the additions to on the balloons, and I've added in some white markings onto this one as well. I've then taken the banner stamp and I've stamped the banner, and then I've added in the words "sending hugs" from the sentiment set of stamps. And this is a nice thing to mention as well. When you receive the balloon set, you've got your banner in place, you've got your several different sentiments that will fit perfectly into that banner. But actually, if we skip through the collection and we have a little look at the sentiments, all of this side here will also fit within that banner. So of course that means our large pieces will not, but all of these will fit into that banner, so it gives you more options to stamp in them, more sentiments, more styles. So again, like with a happy birthday, we can have this really lovely loopy one, or we can have that more modern sort of stripped back font, and it just gives you different options when you're doing your stamping and layering up your sentiments. And that completes our very easy, very simple card to create. And you can see between the two how this one's coloured more intently than this one, but this is the joy of giving you the products to work with and build up and create with as you wish to. It's down to how you want to colour it, how intent you wish to have it. And of course I've coloured with elite misters. We could have coloured with watercolour inks or watercolour pencils, alcohol markers, any of those different mediums to create similar effects if you prefer. But I love these Elite Misters, and I'm finding so many things I like doing with them, including painting, including mixing them into different products to make my own colours and mediums. So it just gives you options to have sort of that collection of Elite Misters to also coordinate perfectly with your matching cardstock. Now, as I mentioned earlier, if you would like any of the products that we have had a little look at in today's video, whether that be the stencils from the collection, whether that be the Elite Misters that we had a little look at, whether of course that is the stamps from the Floral Lace Collection, all of these can be found at our lovely stockists. So pop on to www.jamierodgerscrafts.com and have a little look at the stockist guide to track these down and get these in your crafty stash. Thank you very much for watching, and please don't forget to subscribe to our channel because it's lovely having you with us. Bye for now.